Lives were lost because of incompetence, gross incompetence, taking the military out first, and $85 billion worth of equipment, the best in the world. It's a disgrace. When President Xi and Putin and everybody else looks at that, they've totally lost respect for our country.
One more question for you on these TV sets the White House is building. You know something about producing television shows. Is this good production value? Is this helping anything?
Well, I never got the opportunity to do a TV set. They came at me, including you. You come at me strong, and that's okay. That's what we have to do. If we make mistakes, you have to be able to answer. He doesn't respond to the press, and the press doesn't ask him tough questions. I mean, the questions on Afghanistan, the questions on the border, he doesn't even talk about it.
Okay, all right, let's bring in now Erin Elmore from Turning Point USA. She's also a lawyer and a Republican strategist, and she was out there with me in Iowa covering the rally. Erin, great to see you again.
Great time. Thanks for having me.
Well, it was great to have you out there with us. I just, when we were out there in Iowa, I think even you, who is very familiar with these types of situations, was maybe, I guess, overwhelmed or surprised by how intense the support was for President Trump and how much these folks are counting on him to change the current trend lines that we see with immigration, with inflation, and so many other areas that are going in the wrong direction.
Absolutely. It was inspirational, a massive, breathtaking crowd of people who love our country and are hopeful that perhaps President Trump is the person that can get us back on track, because there's so much rejection and dejection right now in the communities for Republicans. We don't have sports anymore. We don't have Hollywood. We don't have big tech. We don't have the mainstream media. And President Trump is that common thread that brings us all together, who inspires us, that has our back, that supports us. And these people were just loving the president, loving the crowd, happy to be there, loving America, and truly, it took my breath away. It was really awe-inspiring, and it was a massive crowd.
When we were listening to the speech, there were several areas where, everyone was paying attention, obviously, but there were certain parts where the focus was more intense. And I think, and if anything, this is a preview of what we're going to hear from not just President Trump, but other Republicans on the campaign trail ahead of 2022. We talked about Afghanistan and the weakness shown by this administration. And I wanted to start there. How do you think President Trump did when it came to that message at this rally?
I mean, I think that was a really strong point. And there's a lot of embarrassment that Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike are feeling. They said, what happened in Afghanistan? We didn't have our own peoples back in Afghanistan. And by the way, it makes us look so weak on the international stage. China's watching, Russia's watching, and now they know the United States is weak and isn't going to do anything. President Trump instilled fear in these people. And they knew if you mess with America, President Trump will react and react swiftly and powerfully. And they don't have that now. And Americans are just scared and terrified that we look completely, like a third world country. And I think President Trump just hit the nail on the head the way that he spoke about Afghanistan and how it was an embarrassment. And I think that people were really nodding in unison, and there was a lot of applause saying, we need to change this narrative and show that America's strong. And
one of the other areas where I think President Trump has a lot of, support on this issue is the election audits. Obviously, this is something that, every single person that I talked to in the crowd, what they care a lot about is making sure they feel like when they go to the ballot box in 2022 that their vote counts. Otherwise, if they don't feel like their vote matters, they're not going to show up.
Absolutely. Even dictatorial countries have elections so they have the appearance of propriety, and America doesn't need to be like that. Everyone wants to know that their vote counts, and President Trump has made it his mission to make sure that these states are doing these audits, and that these people that plan on cheating or cheated in the past know, I can't get away with this again. And we don't know if that's exactly true, but I know that with Arizona, there's a lot of things pointing to a lot of improprieties, whether it's people not on the voter rolls anymore, people that have passed away, scanning of duplicate ballots. And people need to feel confident that when they go to the ballot, their vote counts. And that's what President Trump said. Please make sure that, you're working the polls and being part of the election process. So we do have that election integrity. And that's a very, very important topic that, honestly, again, everyone in America should care about, not regardless of your party affiliation. Our votes all need to count. We need fair and free and safe elections.
How many rallies have you been to of President Trump's?
Probably over 10, less than 20. So I've been to a fair amount, starting back in 2015 when he announced. So I've been at this game a long time with President Trump.
And in terms of the energy, I mean, it was palpable, and it didn't hurt that Iowa won that game in the last minute against Penn State. That got the crowd revved up. The weather was absolutely perfect. I mean, you couldn't ask for more. But was there anything that stood out for you, Erin, having been to more than 10 Trump rallies? It did seem like the energy was more than the last one I went to, which was right before the election in 2016, which is saying a lot, I think.
There's hope, and there were people. The crowd was huge, and this is Iowa. This isn't like a metropolis, like a New York City or something. This is Iowa, largely rural communities that banded together. We were talking to people, John. People came from Arizona,
yes,
Wisconsin, Michigan. People came from all over the country to hear President Trump speak. People wait all day to hear him speak, and we did feel that hopeful nature that although America right now is on a very bad trajectory, whether it's the economy, whether it's the border, whether it's Afghanistan, that we can get this country back. People like us, the true patriots of America, will restore our country to greatness. And that's what I felt in this crowd. Everyone was together, working almost as a community and shaking hands, and everyone just sort of supporting each other, saying, we want to save this country and we care about our country, and President Trump's the guy to get the job done. It was a really helpful, awe-inspiring crowd.
And virtually no sign of the pandemic there. That was one thing that stuck out to me. You would not know that this was 2021 because the pandemic, no masks, nobody was talking about it. You know, you mentioned, I think the man's name was Rick, because I talked to him too. He flew in from Arizona. He said he was not going to miss the announcement. He was going to try to go to all the rallies until President Trump finally does announce that he's going to run for president. I also talked to Diana from Chicago, who drove all the way in. She was a Serbian immigrant, came to this country years ago, and she was very concerned about the Democratic Party's slide towards socialism and potentially communism. She did not want to miss that. I also talked to some guy, Erin, who was a British expat, had immigrated here to this country years ago. He was a member of the British Royal Navy, and he said when he traveled all over the world and he went to all different ports of call, he found nothing like the freedom he experienced here in this country, and he ultimately decided to leave England and come here to the United States. And of course, he was a big Trump supporter as well. I love these events and getting out there with the folks and shaking hands and meetings. And remember Storm? We met Storm, who hung out with us. And of course, I can't remember her real name, but she said I would forget it, so to call her Storm. It was good stuff. But also, our friend Rogan O'Hanley, who was with us, he was on a Southwest flight back, and he got stuck in St. Louis last night. Here's what he said about that. Here he is.
I'm here in the St. Louis airport, and guess what? I had a Southwest Airlines flight back home from the Trump rally in Iowa, and apparently a bunch of them are on strike, thousands of flights getting canceled. And you know what I have to say about that, being personally affected by this? Good for you. Keep striking. Stand up for America. Stand up for medical freedom and bodily autonomy. The American people have your back. Thank you.
All right, so Rogan's going to join us in the next hour. He couldn't join Erin and I right now because he's just getting his feet underneath him from that travel delay. But Erin, I felt terrible since we invited Rogan out there to come with us and he got stuck in all this stuff.
But the way that Rogan explained it was perfectly accurate. He cares more. I would rather be inconvenienced myself, just like Rogan DC Drano was, because Southwest is doing the right thing. And kudos to all these employees. And I've been reading a lot about it from Alex Berenson, by the way, who was kicked off Twitter. He also believes in medical autonomy. That these people, a lot of the Southwest pilots and air traffic control individuals are former military, and they are patriots. Mm-hmm. And they say, no, we are not standing for this mandatory vaccine. Of course, if you want to get it, go right ahead. So what they're doing, I think they're calling it a sick out, where people are using up all of their sick leave and paid time off to show these people that, you know, often as a worker or someone that's just a cog in the wheel like we all are, we don't feel that we have power. This is how you show power. This is how you show Joe Biden and Anthony Fauci and your employers. No, I'm not just going to bow my head in compliance to your ridiculous mandates. And I too agree with Rogan. Inconvenience me, because if we are not inconvenienced, we will not have freedom and power in this country. You know, we don't want this to become like Nazi Germany. I want to stand up and do what's right. And if that means not getting to go to certain restaurants, or I didn't even get to go to synagogue on the high holidays because they were requiring masks and vasks. So you know what? Inconvenience yourself, because that's how patriotism works and that's how democracy works. And we have to hurt a little bit to get a lot. And I'm here for that.
Erin, thanks for that. Great to have you with us in Iowa this weekend. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled.